CCP. And especially in the context of cyber, our focus is on conducting joint sequenced operations, which almost invariably involve not just U.S. partners, but sometimes as many as 10 or 20 foreign partners all working together in tandem to try to have the whole be greater than the sum of the parts. We talked a lot about numbers, the disadvantage that we're at relative to the CCP, but as General Nakasone said, one thing we have is partnerships, true partnerships, which allow us to have kind of our two, the U.S.'s two, together with some other country, say it's Japan's two, and have it equal 5, to get synergies when working together. And that's ultimately our best defense against the CCP.
So China is ready to attack by 2027 Taiwan. And we heard, and we had a great meeting with former Defense Secretary Gates, and he was the one actually talking about more of, it's not going to be the war, but more of the commercial stops, means that they're going to just stop all these ships going in and out. That's the way they're going to isolate Taiwan. But when the other countries are still using those systems, and especially in the United States, our cranes were made by China, and they're actually controlling it. You were talking about that just a little gas line that, you know, we got into trouble, but when they stop all those cranes that what we are using in the United States ports, we are in big trouble, and then we cannot communicate, or we can communicate maybe, don't know, but you know what, we cannot really bring anything to Taiwan since that's islands. So we really have a big problem. So what kind of thing that we are really preparing that, you know, how we're going to really go inside the CCP and find out that exactly what they are doing. And I think Congresswoman Stevens was talking about that. Do they have their own department? I think they do, and just only do cyber attacks. So how much we know that inside of China, that what they are doing to us and to other countries?
We have a tremendous amount of insight in terms of how they're organized, what their plans are, and what they're doing. This is one of the things that the National Security Agency spends a tremendous amount of time on. And we have a very, very good insight in terms of what their intent is.
The gentlelady, anyone else want to comment?
Thank you very much for all witnesses today, and learned a lot. I had to get out because Ways and Means Committee meetings, but thank you so much, Chairman.
Thank you. Home stretch. 2 more, I think. I just jinxed it. Someone may come back. Mr. Khanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Wray, could you assure the American public today that no nonviolent protester about a ceasefire of the Middle East will be investigated or surveilled by the FBI?
We are not going to be investigating nonviolent First Amendment activity.
And can you just assure, whatever their position is on the Middle East or the 2024 election, if there is an American who's out there engaged in expressing their view, whether that is for a ceasefire or whatever that is, the FBI is not going to be investigating them or surveilling them, correct?
Our mission is to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution, and we intend to do both. We embrace both parts of that mission. In our view, it doesn't matter what you're ticked off about or who you're ticked off at. There's a right way under the First Amendment to exercise those views, and we're going to help protect that. And there's a wrong way to exercise those views, and that's violence and threats, and we are going to investigate that.
I appreciate your saying that, because I think I share your view that the First Amendment and peaceful protest is at the heart of our democracy. I also have appreciated some of your views on making sure that as we appropriately investigate Chinese threats to infrastructure and the Chinese Communist Party's threats and deal with the cybersecurity, you've been very clear that you do not think that that should involve the profiling of Chinese Americans, and I think you've been sensitive in some remarks you made at University of Michigan about how in the past that has happened. Can you speak to some of the past history of profiling of Asian Americans and how under your leadership you're going to make sure that that doesn't happen as we appropriately investigate Chinese Communist Party threats to the United States?
We are going to aggressively pursue the threat posed by the CCP with investigations that are predicated on the facts and the law and our policies. And they're not going to be based on race, ethnicity, or national origin, and they haven't been. Now, it is the case that the Chinese government aggressively targets individuals here to enlist them in their efforts, but they also aggressively suppress and coerce and harass Chinese Americans and Chinese visitors here. And so we view as part of our role to help protect those people. And so part of the key is drawing the distinction in between the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, the malicious actor, and Chinese Americans, Chinese dissidents, the victims.
And as you do this, Director Wray, like I said, I think under your leadership, from your public comments, you've been quite good about drawing that distinction. But do you bring to it a historical awareness that Asian Americans in this country have been profiled in our history, just like I'm sure you have a historical awareness of the FBI's role during the Civil Rights Movement?
Certainly, there have been abuses or mistakes in the past, and we're determined to make sure that those things don't happen again. But I do want to make clear that our work, at least since I've been director, focused on Chinese aggression, is based on the facts and the law and proper predication.
And you can assure sort of Chinese Americans that they aren't being profiled or targeted in any way based on their ethnicity or race?
We are not going to open investigations based on profiling people for race, ethnicity, or national origin or anything of that sort.
Thank you. I'm done with my questions.
Thank you. And finally, a special guest, the esteemed chairman of the Homeland Security Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection, Representative Garbarino. I have to ask unanimous consent for the gentleman to participate and ask questions at this hearing. Unanimous consent. Ominous dominus. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member, for allowing me to visit today as a special guest. And I look forward to continuing to work with you all on building resilience to our CCP cyber threat. First, Director Wray, I'd like to say I took an international trip with some other colleagues, and we met with some of your employees over, your men and women in some other countries, and they are doing a phenomenal job, especially on the cyber threat level. So I'm saying great job with that. Director Easterly, it's good to see you. I wanted to ask you a question. The intelligence community has been warning for years that China has the ability to launch cyber attacks to disrupt U.S. critical infrastructure. In response to the persistence of this threat, I understand CISA has hired a new associate director to lead China operations. Can you please provide an update on the work of what's been completed over the last 6 months, and what do you have for the remainder? What plans for the remainder of the year?
Great. Thanks so much. Great to see you, Chairman. Early last year, we decided to stand up a whole element under the Associate Director for China Operations, and so we hired a terrific subject matter expert, Andrew Scott, to lead that effort, really a cross-agency effort, to ensure we had a deep understanding of the threat to critical infrastructure and that we could work effectively with our partners across the interagency at the state and local level, and of course with industry, to be able to build the security and the resilience that we need to defend the nation from these threats. Since that period of time, we, of course, as we've been talking about in this hearing, we have affirmatively found and eradicated Chinese intrusions in our critical infrastructure, a whole variety of sectors that we believe are being used to pre-position and prepare for destructive cyber attacks. So we have many lines of effort. One is about evicting cyber actors. One is about providing our free services to all of our stakeholders across the country so they have the vulnerability capabilities to identify and drive remediation of these vulnerabilities and exploits taken advantage of by the Chinese cyber actors. And then, as we've been talking about here, really catalyzing that operational collaboration, those public-private partnerships, because between government and the intelligence community, we really need industry to help build that mosaic so we have a deep understanding of the threat so that we can together reduce risk to the American people.
Is the JCDC, you talk about those collaborations, the JCDC, Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, what value is that adding to your China operations?
Yeah, this was, of course, the great innovation brought to us by the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. Started out as the Chickpo. We turned it into the JCDC because I like rock and roll. But we've had that stood up for over 2.5 years now. We went from 10 companies that we're working with to over 200. And it really has been the platform that we've used to catalyze that operational collaboration, which is rooted in 3 fundamental things. A recognition that a threat to one business could be a threat to many. Why letting FBI and CISA know about a cyber threat incident is so critical. Second, it's really the reciprocal responsibilities of government and industry to recognize that we have to share information in real time. That has to be transparent. The government has to add value. The government has to be responsible in terms of how we protect data. And then finally, what the JCDC offers is a scalable way for us to share information, not just with the private sector, but very important partners across the government, like the National Security Agency Cyber Collaboration Cell and FBI's NCI JTF. So it really does help to put operational collaboration across the cyber ecosystem on steroids. And again, we're very grateful to the Congress for helping to fund it and authorize it, and to the Cyberspace Solarium Commission for coming up with that great idea.
Thank you, Director. Director Coker, congratulations on the new position. I wanted to, in your opening testimony, you mentioned administration's focusing on harmonizing cyber regulation in furtherance of the National Cyber Strategy. As you understand, the SEC recently finalized a cyber incident rule that goes, what I believe is against CERCIA, and also so does the Department of Homeland Security. And many sectors have said that with this new rule, their cyber employees are going to be spending half their time on compliance instead of facing the threats from CCP cyber threats. As we pursue a CRA this week, the Senate might pass it, and we're going to try to pass it in the House. What is the administration doing to harmonize between agencies and departments?
And thank you for your kind words and for raising this important topic to us. Part of the National Cybersecurity Strategy has been to do regulatory harmonization. And the point of that regulatory harmonization is to reduce the burden of compliance. And the way we're going about that, we have issued a request for information and received more than 80 responses from the private sector and public sector. Right now we are going through the process of better understanding those, again with the goal of reducing the burden of compliance. So that's our goal right there. We understand that
I appreciate that. I'm out of time, so but someone should tell the SEC that, though, okay?
I thank the gentleman, and pleasure to have you here. You're welcome back anytime. Well, maybe not anytime, but 2 comments, and then we'll close, and I'll recognize the ranking member. One of the first things I said in our first hearing was that the stakes of this competition were existential. Now, I got a lot of blowback for that, but I don't think after the testimony we've heard today there could be any doubt. I mean, there is one path where we stumble into a war for which we're ill-prepared, and even victory might have existential consequences in the sense that it would transform America into a garrison state. Or there's another path in which we slowly succumb to the sedation of TikTok and we surrender, and we no longer stand for the ideals and values that America stands for, that the rest of the world is looking to us to stand for. And so while this hearing has revealed many things we need to do, and while the competition in cyber with China is one that's going to outlast my time in Congress, I'm confident of that, there are things that we must do now urgently. Foremost among them, in my opinion, particularly in light of the testimony we heard from Director Wray, either ban or force the sale of TikTok. I mean, it's bordering on national suicide if we continue down this road. And I get that TikTok has hired an army of lobbyists, including former members of Congress who are collecting a paycheck, but the time is now to do something about this. And by the way, if you're invested in ByteDance, you're not going to take TikTok public in America under the current ownership structure. So if only in your own financial interest, we have to find a way to force a separation. The time is now to act. Okay, on that happy note, I will transition to recognizing the hard work of the Democrat Staff Director, John Stivers, who is departing the committee this week after 25 years of service on the Hill, almost as long as General Nakasone has been in uniform. I will confess, John, we've worked together for a year. You have aged me personally 3 years in that time. There have been moments when I have lied awake in bed thinking, you know, life would be easier if you did leave, but now I'm sad now that it's happening. And one thing I've learned in working with John, and particularly working in the human rights community, he's been doing this since before it was cool, and he's truly a hero in the human rights community. And it's been very cool to be able to see that. And I'll give you the highest compliment I could give you, John, which is that if I had to negotiate with Xi Jinping with the fate of the free world on the line, I would want you on my team because I know you would drive him crazy. So it's been a pleasure to work with you. And with that, I recognize the ranking member.
Thank you so much, Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses. This has truly been a really important hearing, a call to action more than anything else. And I think that Mike and I were talking during the hearing about several ideas that you folks generated that we need to follow up on, and we'll do so on a bipartisan basis. And thank you for your service. Thank you, General Nakasone, for everything that you've done for our nation and for coming today, as well as all of you. And I will remember CISA.gov from Ms. Easterly, so thank you so much. As we try to enlist our civilian partners in our collective defense, collective cyber defense, and employ what you call cyber hygiene, which I love. And then I would also like to recognize our staff director, John, who's departing today. You know, Mike covered the highlights, but he's also had other very distinguished roles in government. He was an assistant administrator for Asia at USAID. He was a commissioner to the U.S.-China Economic Security Review. He was a senior advisor to Leader Pelosi. And, you know, now he's off to the next chapter, the next 25 years. And so I look forward to continuing to collaborate between us and you in your next roles. And I just want to give him a big round of applause for his service. I'm not done. I am done. I yield back. Thank you.
Without objection, questions for the record are due 1 week from today. Without objection, the committee hearing is adjourned.